So this is part 3 of considerations of being a private money lender. In part 1 and 2, we discussed kind of what to do before lending. And so this part 3 is assuming that you have done those things. If you have not, my simple suggestion to summarize is just get a lawyer involved, because they're going to be your best bet to kind of figure out through your situation. The reason why we discussed those things in part 1 and 2 to do it specifically that way is because it gives you very clear, easy options to take plan of action. That's going to be number one thing to do, is have a plan of action. And then what that essentially means is, when you have a plan of action, is that whatever you decide that you're going to do, you need to make sure that you follow exactly how it's going to go. Now, you're going to want to get a lawyer involved relatively early, simply for a number of reasons. One, the judges will take you more seriously if you have a lawyer involved. Two, it might actually be required. Some areas that we've done this before actually require that if you're living out of a business entity, it's required. So if you try to do this as a personal judgment, you go to court, you go through all this trouble, the judge said you can't represent yourself, you're immediately out. That, and also the person that you're in contact with that defaults will also likely take you more seriously as well. Next thing is, consider 3 things: the level of contact, the reasoning behind the default, and the ability to be repaid or to make you whole. So let's talk about that first one, contact. Are they talking to you on a daily basis in their consistent communication, and are they honest with that communication? If that's the case, this is a whole different story. It might not even be a situation where I get the lawyer involved yet. Now, if they're on the other end of the spectrum where they're not contacting you at all, or they're blowing you off, or they're saying they're going to do something by a certain date, and then that date comes and then they don't do it. For example, I'll have your money by Friday. Saturday, Sunday rolls around, no contact, ignoring you. And then the next Friday, like, oh, hey, sorry, I forgot to pay you. So-and-so was in the hospital, and just excuses. Move on from there. Just get the lawyer involved. Number 2, the reason. And this is typically only going to be focused around if they're being open and honest with you of what happened. This could be a number of things from, I've had situations where a cloud got put on title from a relative of the original seller. And in that case, it's completely out of the scenario. They could have foreseen that to happen. So, of course, I'm more likely to do something in case of default. It could be also on the flip side of it, where they just flat out lied. They said, hey, I need these funds for renovation. And they flat out didn't use those funds for the renovation of the property you're lending on. They used it for a whole nother property instead. If that's the case, I'm just going to go straight to the lawyer, and then we're not even going to deal with it at that point in time unless I think they can repay me. So I factor in all those things with determining whether we can work with them or not. Now, a kind of in-between scenario might be that they undershot on their budget and they simply need more money. If I can believe they can meet their new target deadline that they're proposing to me, and I put on them to propose it to me, then, and it's a chance of, okay, me having to foreclose and potentially lose money, or I have to put my time to it, or me, allow me to get more time to get this done, potentially even lending more money to have it done, and they've been in good faith so far, then yes, I will. Now, at that point, if I'm going to lend them more money, I'm essentially reevaluating the whole deal over again. The deal as it is right now, would I foreclose on it now with this added $10,000 on? And more importantly, are they going to accept my new timeline I give them? So if they're about to pay my fee, which is very, very hefty already, but we're going to renegotiate it that they get a 2-month extension. But then at the end of that 2 months, are they willing to pay that penalty then? If that's the case, then I will. Now, we'll be honest. If somebody misses their timeline and they miss it bad, and I give them an extension, it's likely the last time I ever lend to them on it. I just don't want to deal with that situation, because once you've made that concession with them once, they think that you will make it again. And then that ties into the third one, which is ability to repay and also to be made whole. If I'm going to make money and a lot of money for closing our property right away, I might just lean towards, let's just foreclose on this property and then let me just quickly sell it to somebody else. Or let me just get one of my partners to partner with to flip the property together. And then that's completely passive for me, that I just bring on somebody that can flip the house for me or flip the apartment complex or whatnot. Also, too, as well, is that if the person I lend to, ideally I did this up front, but I like people that have W-2 jobs. I like have people that actually have a tax return, actually have income that I could go after. If they have poor credit, they have no income, they're not showing any income on the books, and they're just in general, they couldn't get any money from the bank. Sometimes I might decide, you know what, it's just worth just taking the loss as is. Or just, foreclosing on the property immediately and then just cutting my losses. Rather than take a $110,000 loss, I'll take it back, I'll turn around and sell it and just take a $10,000 loss and be gone with it. If I know that they have a lot to risk at this point in time, that might give me a little bit more leeway, because I know that, okay, well, the person right now has good credit. If I get a default judgment, I know I can collect it, which, depending on where you're at, default judgments are normally easiest to collect in October, November, to file to basically garnish for their tax return. So that's another thing too as well. So if I do it in January, then I might be more willing to allow to go a little bit more towards October, November, because that's typically when I'm filing for my garnishment. So that's another thing to consider. The next part, and this is kind of thing that kind of ties into just transparency. And I see this even with tenant laws. Don't say anything that you will not do. If you make a threat, you better follow through with that threat. So if you're going to say, if you do not pay me by next Wednesday, I am going to get a lawyer involved. Not, okay, you give me an excuse on Tuesday night that says you're not going to pay me. No. What I specifically said was, I don't need a new reason from you by Wednesday night. I specifically said, you do not pay me by Wednesday, I am going to get a lawyer involved. A lawyer is going to contact you almost immediately. And what will happen is they'll give you an excuse Tuesday night. You're like, okay, well, that's not what I said. What I said, if you were listening, was you pay me Wednesday or lawyer gets involved. So you're telling me that this is not going to happen. You're not going to pay me. So I'm going to get the lawyer involved. I'll go reach out to them and then you can deal with them. The last one, and this is more dealing with somebody that is cooperative or you think might cooperate but could possibly give you a runaround, is summarize everything in writing. Now, this might be with the lawyer that's kind of doing this, depending on how everything is going. But you don't want to have it happen where you've talked with them multiple times and then all of a sudden everybody's confused. Like, well, you said this, I said this. And it's like, well, I did say this, but that was on Tuesday. Don't you recall our conversation on Thursday where we said we're going to do this instead based on new evidence or new things you gave me? So anytime I have a conversation that's meaningful, I always basically put it in an email and I'll say, respond back to this that you agree with this. If there's anything that you disagree with, then let me know. But otherwise, your response to this email is saying that you accept the email. Also, this email will supersede any other previous emails that we have. And sometimes what I'll even do is I'll take the previous emails that we said, hey, these are the expectations, these are the 9 bullet points, and I'll make changes to that and I'll send that out to them. I'm like, just so you know, any conversations we have afterwards, if they are not summarized and writing in email to like this, then it's not considered basically a part of our agreement that we're talking about. So it's very clear, if it's not part of this email that I sent out to you expecting that you will pay me on this date, you will give me this amount of money, or this will happen, and this is the penalty. It's going to clearly lay everything out. So then I don't have to deal with them later on saying like, well, you said this, or I thought this, or they try to go to a judge later on and say, well, they told me this. And then it's like, well, no, like I clearly have an email to them that they responded to. They acknowledged that this was their email for point of contact, that they were going to do all these things. And it also superseded all the previous emails and also said that any discussions we have, if it's not summarized in writing, either through a lawyer or through future emails, it's not something that we actually agreed on. So that way then the judge knows, oh, he's made it pretty clear that this is what you all agreed to unless both of you agree to otherwise and you do not have proof. You're just saying that the lender said this, but it's completely opposite from what you said. So that will make things clear, because then you're just going to get frustrated with he said, she said, and then you're just going to get frustrated that people are lying, because honestly, if they're willing to default on a loan to you, more than likely a lot of times people are also willing to lie to you too as well. So that concludes the lending portion of this too as well. I am going to field a few questions on this on a live session probably in the next week or so. And so if you have questions, if you want to go ahead and put those in the comments, I will address those if you're not able to attend that question and answer. Or I will also post on my social media when that question and answer session will be. All right, thanks a lot.